Now that we've got our finished drawing here, we're going to spend a little bit more time actually looking at the layouts which we're going to be printing out in. Okay, so really what we're talking out here is what used to be called paper space. Now the neat thing about this is that although we've got our dimensions in model space here, it may well be that we're going to add extra data in paper space in the layout. So that data can include not just the data we've got here in the model and the stuff that's in model space, but we've got, like models and dimensions and stuff. But we can add extra tables and text and title blocks and all sorts of things. So they're very, very versatile, and we can pick all sorts of different sort of paper sizes, sort of A4, A3, all the way up to sort of A6 and A0. Now, the one thing to bear in mind is that we've got our model space here in its infinite size, and we've got layout 1, and we've got layout 2 as well, and that's a different size piece of paper. So the thing to bear in mind is that we are viewing each one of these pieces of paper in what is called screen space. Now, screen space means that you can see different sized pieces of paper on the screen, but at the same size. So obviously it's going to be smaller than a physical sheet of paper. So for example, if you've got an A4 sheet of paper, it's not going to fit on the screen, is it? Certainly an A0 piece of paper wouldn't fit on the screen. So you can see as I zoom in here, we can see more and more detail. And it becomes more and more obvious what that detail is, because we're not sort of viewing this in one-to-one. So it seems like some of the detail sort of disappears off. Now, it's all very well of me showing these examples of the layout 1 and layout 2, but really, how do we create our own? So it may be the ones that we've got aren't quite what we want, or it may be that we want to change them in some way. But at the very least, we're going to sort of want to make our own ones. So this can easily be done by right-clicking on one of our layouts here, and at the top here, we've got an option here called New Layout. So as soon as you do that, we've got a tab that appears, and it just says Layout 3. And Layout 3 appears to be pretty blank. Doesn't appear to have much detail in there. So one of the things we're going to have to do is sort this out. So we're going to have to scale out, or sort of zoom out rather, and scale correctly. But you can see if I pan there, and if I zoom in and out, as you can see here, it's in paper space. So I need to select the viewport, the green line that's selected now, and I want to change to model space, as you can see down at the bottom. So we've got a thick line around it, and I can now use my wheel mouse, as I would normally do in model space, to zoom out. So what we've got here is things have sort of been zoomed out on the piece of paper, but this is very much a window into the model space, even though we're viewing it in paper space. And that seems a little bit odd, but it'll make sense as we go through. So now I need to scale the picture into that viewport. So I don't know what scale that's in. And if I look down here, you can see my viewport scale is in a very strange option. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to left click on that, and I'm going to start picking a 1 to 50, for example. So we've got 1 to 50, 1 to 100. There are all various different options in there. And 1 to 50 seems to be a little bit too small, or a little bit too large rather. 1 to 100 seems to fit a little bit better, as we can see. So now I'll switch to model space, and I've still got the viewport, and I can actually move that around a little bit if I want to, and just resize it, but without actually resizing the picture inside. So you can see this is very, very useful, because what we're seeing there, we can sort of crop down what we're seeing, as it were. That's probably the best way of describing it. So you can see there we've got the picture of the house that we've got there, and we now know that that's being displayed on the screen at 1 to 100. So when I go to put that in my title block, I can put down that the scale of the drawing is 1 to 100, and I know that, or I certainly know that that viewport is. So now I'm going to my page setup manager, and I'm going to go to my layout 3, you can see here, and I'm going to modify it. Okay, we've created the new layout 3, so now it needs modifying. So the first thing we've got in here is we've got all these different scales, And really you want to make sure that you've got a 1-to-1 scale going on, otherwise you'll find strange things happening with your viewports. Now you can see there that that piece of paper is A4 small, so I want to change it. Now it may be that I want a slightly bigger drawing. So for example, you know, we could pick any one of those, but we're not quite sure which kind of plotter we want. So I'm going to might be sending it electronically. Probably good chance I will be. So I'll send that as an Adobe PDF. And it may well be that the guy I'm sending it to, I know who's got a full-size plotter. So I might change it to be A3. Or I might change it to be A2. It depends on his plotter and what he can print out. So you can see we're making that in Adobe PDF. It's A2 paper size, and we've got our plot scale set at 1-to-1. So we'll close that down, and you can see the piece of paper seems to be the same size on the screen, but the viewport is now a lot smaller. Now that's because the viewport would fit an A4 piece of paper, but it's not on an A4 piece of paper anymore, is it? It's on a much bigger piece of paper. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually rescale the size of my viewport, as you can see I'm doing here. And what I'll then need to do is I will then have to change the size of the scaling. So I can pan my drawing now into the middle of my new resized viewport, and I can pick a different scale to probably 1-to-50. And we can see there now that the 1-to-50 scale is a nice scale on that sheet of paper. So it's all about sort of picking the right size of paper and the right size of viewport as well. And I'm just going to adjust the size of the viewport that we've got there, just to sort of trim it up a little bit. I remember we can always make it bigger if we need to, so I'm really just trying to trim it down as much as possible at the moment. So that's going to give me the kind of space that I'm looking for to put any extra information on the right hand side of that drawing. So I could put a table in there, or I could put a title block in as well. And I've got enough room around that drawing now. Now that's fine if I just want the one viewport, but what happens if I want more? So in that case, I'm going to have to create my own viewport. So I can do that from the viewport section of my ribbon bar. And you can see the icon I've got there is the viewports. And I'm just going to pick a new one. And I'll pick single. So I don't want any, I could have like multiple layouts, but for the moment I just want single. And then what I have to do is to left click and drag out a box, which is going to be our new viewport, or my new viewport rather. So if I click on that now, you can see I've created the viewport, but it's in paper space. So I need to make it model space in order to be able to sort of zoom into a specific section. So for example, this is really useful for doing those sort of those blown up sections that you would have in a drawing, where we're just showing a specific area of a drawing shown in blown up detail. And because this is all done on a computer, you can do that blow up. You know, you can do that sectional detail in there without losing any fidelity or detail within your drawing. So we'll just open up the viewport a little bit, just change its size very, very slightly, just so that we can see the whole of the kitchen area there. And you can see that what we're just doing is literally, it's just that piece of information, just that sort of that one room there. And that's pretty much it. You know, we've created the two viewports here. You can still have your table, we can still have the title block in there. And to create your new viewport, all you really need to do is to go up to the icon there, click on the button, size it to be as big as you want it to be in the piece of paper, and then do make sure that you remember to scale it properly. So if it's 1-to-25, 1-to-50, 1-to-100, just make sure that it's a set scale. So that's working with layouts. Now it's time to move on.